Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Today, Brandon Eckenrode joins me on the show to talk about something near and dear to my heart, as you already know. Brandon works with the Collision Education Foundation, an incredible organization that is doing unbelievable things to lift up their sector of the skilled trades. Brandon took the traditional route, earning a college degree for English and journalism, but it wasn't long before he found himself working construction to pay down his student loans. Imagine that. Anyways, he found himself working for ICAR, the standard of excellence in the collision industry. Not long after that, he joined the Collision Repair Education Foundation, who works closely with ICAR to help attract, support, and employ people in this industry. To date, they've donated over $500 million in support to schools, programs, and people across the nation in an effort to uplift this ever-important industry. Listen in to hear all about this unbelievable program that we can all aspire to model for the rest of our beloved skilled trades. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. As always, this show's not monetized, and we don't run ads. We rely strictly on word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please take a second to rate it, review it, and share it with your friends. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of the Blue is the New White podcast with Brandon Eckenrode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. I am super excited about our guest today. Brandon, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad to finally have you on. I know we were just talking. We were trying to get connected for a little while there. We're finally connected, finally here, finally get to have a conversation and share what you do with my audience, who I know will greatly appreciate it. So welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for having me, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too, sir. Getting close, aren't we? I'm going to have to probably take a couple weeks off of the podcast. Sorry, listeners. You know how it goes. But listen, for those who don't know who you are, Brandon, I kind of want you to give an overview, right? Where you come from, kind of your journey to how you got to where you are today, so we can put a little context behind what we're going to talk about.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you again, Josh, for having me on. So while I was born in the Detroit area, I was only there for 2 years while getting raised in the Chicagoland area where I reside now. And coming out of college, I have to admit that I went that traditional four-year college route where I actually went to school for or received a degree in English and journalism, which I always love to tell the students that I'm interacting with, that obviously we're going to talk more about. But coming out of college, and I was basically told while I was in school that so many employers are looking for that strong writing skills that not everyone comes out of school with. So that's kind of went to that English and journalism routes. But coming out of school, I was, seeking a job in my field and having to start to pay back some student loans. I actually started off just doing some construction work here in the Chicagoland area. And when applying for employment opportunities, and I believe it might have been even the first company that I applied to, I was interviewed with a company called ICAR, I-CAR, and they are an international training provider within the automotive collision repair industry. So collision industry, meaning all of those companies that are involved when you and I get into a car accident, those companies and individuals that are behind the scenes, making sure that that car is repaired correctly. So that's everyone from the insurance companies, paint companies, tool companies, body shops, dealerships, all those companies involved. I actually started off working for them in their marketing department shortly after college, and having no real experience in the automotive industry as a whole, besides just being a car enthusiast. It was quite eye-opening just to see that side of the industry and all that goes on with how, as you know, how complex our vehicles are becoming and how it takes properly trained people to repair those cars. I was in their marketing department from roughly about 2002 up until about 2008. And during that time, I'm a strong proponent of, giving back where you can. So I was doing some volunteer work here in the Chicagoland area and found out that I have a level of comfort in asking others for support, whether that's, donations monetarily or others, that is where, when the Collision Repair Education Foundation that I currently work for When they transitioned to the fully philanthropic organization they are now, in the 2008-2009 time period, that is when I kind of went to work for them, which is still under the ICAR umbrella, but we're kind of the philanthropic arm that helps support the future professionals of this industry. And I've been working with them ever since 2008. So just over 20 years in the automotive industry. And while I have no technical expertise when it comes to actually repairing the cars, it's been an incredible journey. And I love this industry so much, especially with their cause of trying to make sure that cars are repaired the right way. And there's an obvious need when it comes to like the other technical trades that we need people just like everybody else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm excited to kind of get into the nitty gritty of that a little bit. Before we do, I've got a couple of personal questions I want to ask if you don't mind. And listen, if I get too personal, just tell me to screw off and, next question. So, but I'm a little curious about your high school career, right? You said 2 years in Detroit, rest of the time in Chicago area. When you were in high school, what programs were available kind of like these, right? With trades related or auto shop or, anything like that. Were those programs available to you, and were they pushed?
They were available in my high school, and I would think that there was kind of like woodworking. There was, I think, auto shop on the mechanical side. Not on. I don't remember my high school having a collision repair or body shop program.
Mhm.
And there were others. And I have to admit that, in obviously with what we're trying to address, there was, even back then, it's you have to go to college, otherwise you're going to be a failure in life. And talking with our school counselors back then, or me talking with the school counselor, it was that perception. Whether it was coming from the school or kind of just in general, that was the mindset that was kind of portrayed in terms of that's where you're going to find success in life as you go that route. And obviously, we know that not to be the case, where there are other options, if not even more fulfilling options in the climate and employment market that we're in. But yeah, there were some available, but I have to admit that they were kind of seen as almost like a second class citizen program. Yeah. Compared to the traditional classes or programs that were being pushed or focused on more back even in high school.
Yeah, that's where all the troubled kids got sent, right?
You're a bad kid, go down to shop class, get out of my hair until you get out of school. Yep.
That's exactly right. So, and I had much of the same experience. I didn't have shop class or anything like that in my high school, but same narrative. The counselors brought me in senior year once every 2 weeks because I was very vocal about not going to college, and basically telling me that I was going to throw my life away. So I guess I had the last laugh there, but I'll get into that story another time. But anyway, what about your peers? Your friends that you had in high school. Was there ever a discussion about whether or not college was the right path, or was it pretty widely accepted?
I would say back then it was, like I mentioned before, it was pretty much, college is the route to go. And, a technical college, a community, even a community college was sometimes seen as, a lesser choice in terms of what you could go as opposed to going, directly from high school into a four-year degree. What was interesting though, going from high school to the college that I went to, which was a small state school in the middle of Illinois, it was a big agricultural program that was down there. And I went down there, to be honest with you, I initially went down there for a law enforcement degree because that school that I went to, Western Illinois University, they were one of the top three schools in the country that had a law enforcement program. Ended up kind of transitioning over to that, like I said, English and journalism routes. But then it was kind of a little bit eye-opening even back then to see some of those technical programs and even hearing from some of those peers at the college level in terms of the money that could be earned, the different opportunities, how there's the nationwide need in some of these different programs. So it was kind of a little bit, looking back, it was eye-opening, and how I've now come kind of full circle to being fully immersed in the technical trades and this collision industry. But again, that's where knowing that and seeing that and I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, that there's efforts that we can do to get in front of the students, even at that younger age before high school, that we're being told that you have to introduce students to these career fields. Otherwise you lose them to other opportunities. So that's something that we're working on. But, looking back, it's interesting to see that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk real quick about your construction, when you worked construction for a little bit. But before that, Did you ever have anybody of influence in the trades when you were growing up, like a parent or an uncle or grandfather, grandmother, anybody that was involved? Or
I would say, so what I do remember is my dad, he's the type where you give him a bunch of lumber and he'll build a house in
nice?
terms of like that level of skill. I did not, that did not get kind of passed down to me in terms
No.
of me focusing on that. But I remember distinctly, especially growing up, like as a high school shop class project, my dad built a pool table, like a full functioning pool
Oh
table
wow.
that I think, at least up until a couple of years ago, that we still owned or
Oh
he
my
still
gosh,
owns.
that's
Um,
cool.
and in terms of seeing that skill set, my parents were very much about, pick the path that you are going to enjoy. So nothing was ever really pushed. It was kind of maybe check out this or maybe check out this opportunity, but nothing was really pushed hard.
Okay.
But I did see some of that, like especially with my parents, and that was kind of on that side of the family in terms of that skill set that he was very experienced with, and still to this day, he's got that skill set that I wish I had more of. But hopefully skill sets in other areas to help the future of the industry is where kind of I'm focused at now too.
Absolutely, and that makes a lot of sense. So you graduated college, and then you had mentioned that you briefly got into construction. So I mean, how did that transition happen? How did you go from, hey, I've got a degree in English and journalism, to a construction company?
So midway through college, my family actually relocated to the East Coast for job opportunities. So my parents and my brother relocated out there. And when I graduated, I had the choice of either going out with them or sticking around the Chicagoland area where I was raised. And my very good friend that I've known since I was two, Matt, he and his family were in that field in the local, like the telephone line company, Comcast
Yep.
was the name of it back here. So it was kind of needed a job. They had plenty of opportunities for work. Was able to do that. Basically, I was the person that where if you, and I'm not sure if it even still happens these days with newer technology, but if you got a brand new television or cable line for your phone, they would lay the phone line across your yard to a box in the back of the yard that would be attached to the box to the back of your house. And it was my job with this small crew to go around, and we were the crew that basically you kind of fed that electrical line into what looked like pretty much like a lawnmower, and it would thread the cord or the wire into the ground so it wasn't exposed. So there was lots of overtime working outside. Of course, being in Chicago when it got a little bit colder, that wasn't so much fun. Um, but it was a great paying job, and it allowed me to start paying back like student loans that I said. Bought my first car back then, so that
Nice.
helped open up my eyes in terms of is an opportunity, and it allowed me obviously to seek out other fields that were kind of a little more specific to where my field of study was, and met where I'm at now, and absolutely love it.
Awesome. All right. So, quick question before we move to the next point: what did you learn while doing construction and that type of work that you didn't learn in college?
I learned that if anything, that the pay potential was very good, especially with the need, and there was no shortage of work because of a lack of people in that industry. Obviously, it's an issue with all the technical trades. Loved working outside, but it's a good paying job. And while I think I knew that I saw it was a temporary position that while I was in between trying to find that the full time kind of career work that I'm in now, but there was absolutely an opportunity and path shown to me that if I wanted to continue in that field and get into actually installing the lines and doing that type of work, that there's opportunities there that maybe I did not know or even think of, coming out of college, that there's people that make an incredible living in those technical fields if they want to pursue it.
Okay. Good. Good. I like that. I wish more people knew that. But hey, that's one of our objectives, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so good. So explain to me then the transition between that and iCar. How did that opportunity come about?
So again, I interviewed for the position, having no background in the automotive industry, and obviously that's on the collision industry specifically,
Hmm.
which is again, I never would have thought that it's there's some kind of very numbers, but it's 100+ billion-dollar industry that many people don't think of or even are aware of, because no one wants to get into an accident, and it's never a fun experience. But all the companies and individuals and everybody that's involved in repairing our cars, it was was an interesting learning lesson in terms of finding out more on the technical side, because at the time, or that's what iCar does, they produce technical training that was actually, they were formed by the industry back in 1979, where there was a need for there was a need for standardized kind of curriculum and training so that the people that are repairing our cars know what they're kind of getting involved with when it comes to these cars becoming more and more complex. So it was a great experience in terms of, getting introduced to the industry, participating with the events, and starting to get my name out there in terms of finding more about the industry and all the companies involved. And again, I was with them from 2002 up until about 2008. So that was a good foundation, pun intended, for me to then go into, the organization that I am now, to where part of my job is to be interacting both on the school side, but then also on the industry side, because that's where we're getting our support. So it was a great kind of initial start within this industry, and to be under the kind of same corporate umbrella for over 20 years is kind of rare these days, because a lot of people sometimes job hop. But it's an incredible industry that cares about the need for our cars to be repaired correctly. But as you know, Josh, these vehicles, even they're changing almost every single year. Yeah. So how the people that are involved in repairing them need to keep up with that if we're going to be trusted to get back in those cars. And that's what, iCar helps focus on, to make sure that those companies have that training.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of those, I want to say, I don't know what the right word is, overlooked, or what I like to call white noise industries, right? People don't understand, I don't think, when they get their car in, or when they get into an accident, God forbid, everybody's okay. They go, they take their car to one of these collision masters, service masters, one of these places that focus specifically on, restoring cars to drivable condition. But the safety aspect, right? I mean, I don't know that people truly understand that the people that are working on their car, basically their life is in these people's hands, because they can't put that car back on the road if it's unsafe to drive. And if they do, the person driving the car, their life is at stake. This is a very, very important industry. And I don't know that people really understand, what it's all about. I just did a post yesterday on Instagram about this, right? I call it reframing the trades. All right. Pun intended. Right. But it's I go into, we don't run wire, we keep the lights on. We don't fix toilets. We bring the clean water in, right? And this is the same thing, right? We don't fix cars. We keep people safe.
Yep.
And people need to know that.
And what I remember, especially back in that 2002, time period of me starting off the industry, what shocked me, which I think, like you said, a lot of people don't understand, is if you stack 3 dimes on top of each other, I think it's roughly about 10 millimeters. A vehicle repair could be off by just that amount, and the car is not going to react the way it should in an accident, which then, creates the sensors, which then sets off the airbag to keep the occupant safe. So it's that level of safety that's needed or it should be focused on, because like you said, you're entrusting your family, anybody within these cars, and people don't understand that, how you repair cars even just 10 years ago is different because of all the complex, whether it's hybrid vehicles, or you can't cut into a hybrid in the wrong spot because you might get how much voltage sent through you. So there's that safety piece in there that's not just, returning the vehicle, but also when you're repairing it, that's vital to make sure that it's repaired correctly so that, consumers that are getting back in those cars feel safe, as opposed to, it might look great on the outside, but if it's not repaired correctly on the inside, you might have problems. But that's where the consumers should be asking, what training are you keeping up with when you're repairing my car? That they should be asking, the companies that they're going to make sure that they feel safe, that they're getting back into what's being returned to them.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't worry, these are just a bunch of grease monkeys, working on vehicles, right? Yeah. So it's that's interesting. So this isn't even a game of inches, man. This is a game of millimeters.
Yep.
Whew.
And
that's heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy. All right, cool. So let's talk about what it is that you do now. This is riveting information. I think my listeners are going to really enjoy this. But let's talk about, what it is that you do now. Obviously, you saw this, right? You were in marketing. You were marketing for this whole thing from 2002 to 2008, right? Yep. So you began to understand it. You began to see it. You began to probably see the importance of it, right? And so, what else? What led you to what you're doing now? And explain to me and my audience what it is you actually do right now.
Sure. So I currently work for what's called the Collision Repair Education Foundation, or as we're commonly known in this industry, CREF. And we are a national 501c3 charity that supports high school and college post-secondary collision repair or auto body repair school programs, students, and instructors nationwide. So this is everything from a high school shop class, technical college, community college, specific to collision repair. So this is separate from engine work, auto service, mechanical type of work. But we were actually founded in 1991 because the industry, even back then, recognized two things. One, the schools needed to graduate properly trained students that are ready for entry-level work when it comes to this industry. And even back in 1991, the industry recognized that the workforce is getting older and older. We need to do a better job to make sure that we have a stronger pipeline of people coming up into this industry. So at that time, again, collaborating with ICAR, and the best way I like to describe the two organizations is like McDonald's and the Ronald McDonald House. There's ICAR and the Collision Repair Education Foundation. So while we're two separate entities, we work very closely to each other or closely with each other. And from 1991 up until 2008, the foundation was focused more on helping to get ICAR's curriculum into the schools. And again, this is all 50 states nationwide across the country. And it decided in that 2008 timeframe is that while ICAR was the one developing the curriculum, maintaining the curriculum, it made sense to transition that curriculum distribution over to ICAR, which then allowed us as a foundation to be the purely philanthropic organization that we are today. So today, since 2008, what we do, the three areas that we focus on are attraction, support, and employment. So what we try to do, and I can obviously get into details of what our different initiatives are in those areas, but it's in a general sense, it's trying to showcase, like we talked about, what this industry is about, the career paths available, that you can be in this industry and not work on cars. Like you do not want me touching vehicle, even though I've been in the industry 20 years. But there's a place for you here, and there's opportunities, and it's in all the different fields. So it's making these programs look attractive, I think, is one piece of it, whether it's to students who are currently in, say, a high school that might consider it, but also from what we're hearing specifically from the school counselors, which we're having some great dialogue with them, that you have to showcase your industry even before high school. So, some of these programs or students are being told, pick your career path, at the junior high level, which is crazy to me to think of that's what you're deciding. But if that is the case, that is on us as an industry to have a presence, whatever that might look like, with the younger students. So making this industry more aware and attractive to the younger students. On the support piece, which we're known for, I think mostly is since 2008, through our industry partners, we have provided over $500+ million worth of support to these programs. And why that is important is because, as you know, and you've talked about before, because these programs are sometimes seen as that second-class tier program, which are not always supported. Sometimes they are, which is great. But, they're one of the more expensive programs to run, but they need the tools, the equipment, supplies, everything that they need to teach these students, they sometimes can't afford. And there's a school out in Southern California that we always like to use as an example in terms of why there's a need, is that there's a high school out in Southern California. They have 150 students. Their total program budget for the year is $1,000. Now, what you can expect education-wise out of $1,000 when you're trying to teach collision repair that involves materials, sanding, paint, supplies, everything like that, that's not the appropriate amount to be funding these programs. But that is where we come in through our industry partners, whether it's monetary donations or in-kind donations that we then distribute out to the schools in need. That's where it's vital to keep these programs not only open, but thriving. And because there's not a lot of other foundations like us in the other technical trades, we've actually become the envy of other technical programs, because these other instructors are seeing pallets worth of stuff or scholarships being distributed. And they're like, where's all the support coming from? And they say, there's this foundation that goes out on our behalf, gathers the support, distributes it out, and helps these programs stay open. And then last but not least, on the employment side, because we're so well connected with the roughly about 1,000 school programs that are left that have collision repair and the industry, we're a great connector when it comes to facilitating career fair events to get these students introduced to those that are waiting for them and showcasing we have a place for you, we have a path for you in the many different segments of the industry that we have.
I have so many questions.
That's,
this is
I'm ready.
this is fantastic. I mean, I mean, this is music to my ears right now. And I think that it's easy to see why it's the envy of all the other trades, right? Which, I guess the top of mind question is, how did this happen, right? Since 1991, you guys have put forth over $500 million of support, into these industries to attract, support, and employ, these people. So where do most of these donations come from? Like, how do you get your proceeds? Is it people? Is it the automotive industry that's donating? I mean, is it regular people? How do you accumulate this much to be able to give back?
So, and what's interesting, and this is always important to note because of, again, it's the test or the credit should be given to the industry that's given. But in my LinkedIn profile, I have my job. Well, my official title is managing director. My LinkedIn title is facilitator of generosity, because when we reach out to, again, all the segments of the collision industry, again, those are the companies involved with repairing cars. It means insurance companies, paint companies, tool companies, body shops, dealerships, vehicle manufacturers. What's easy for us, and what we're trying to solve, Josh, we have a business case to solve. So there's some charities like, the American Cancer Society, obviously an incredible organization fighting that cause in terms of helping those that are dealing with, and fighting cancer. We have kind of a business case that we can present to the industry to say, according to some data, the average age in our industry, like many other technical trades, is like getting close to 45, 50. Some would even argue that it's closer to 60, depending on the market. It's either we start to address this and help the schools, or this problem is only going to get worse. So it's an investment opportunity where you invest in these programs to make sure that there's a pipeline fulfilling that need that's out there. Otherwise, you and I get into an accident. It might now take maybe a month or two to get a car fixed. That might become 4 months, 5 months because of a lack of people. So we can present that cause or case to them. And I can approach a company that might have like a body shop or a repair facility, for example. The data showcases that an entry-level staff member should produce roughly about $35,000 in revenue per month for a business. That's kind of the average. Now, if it's a company that has 100 locations or however many locations, we can go to them and say, how many people do you need now? How many people are you going to need in the next couple of years? You have a multi-million-dollar problem on your hands. Join us in helping these local schools. So the vast majority, long story short, to answer your question, the vast majority of our support has come from the industry. But I think to your point, it's any car enthusiast, anyone that believes that we should be bringing shop class back, can get involved and help us. And what's important to note, because we're 501c3, 90 cents of every dollar that's donated goes back to the schools. So there's not a lot of overhead. We're a 4 out of 4 star Charity Navigator rated charity, which I think roughly 5 to 10% of the charities in the country have that rating. So we're fully, transparent about the money's going toward the right cause. It's helping out the students, the future of the industry, the future car guys and girls, which is important to note because a lot more women are coming up into this industry. But that's where we're trying to expand to showcase to the public, hey, you can get behind us. You are a car enthusiast. You have a local car club or something like that. You can get involved. Help us support the future car people of the world too.
Wow. That is wild. And all I can think about is like, what this would do to the industry if so many more trades were to follow suit, because basically they can follow the same model, right? I mean,
Yep.
not every trade might be $100 billion industry like the auto industry or collision industry, right? But pretty damn close. Some of them, I bet if once you start to factor in all of those things, the tools and the assets and all of that kind of stuff, I bet you, with the right dedication, that other trades could really, follow that same model. So, okay, you kind of almost answered this next question that I had, but I'm curious what happens if we don't have the people to do this. I imagine that's part of your pitch, right? And you started to say that, cars take longer to get repaired. That's one thing. I mean, I imagine prices is another, but can you paint a picture for us? What happens if in 10 years, all these people that you're talking about, retire and only a fraction of those people enter back into the industry? What does it look like?
I think the worst case kind of nightmare scenario is, what's slowly creeping into reality is when consumers, you and I, need our car repaired. You can't expect it to be around, or you can't expect to get it back in any kind of short form. And that means, I mean, just imagine the pain point that any family, any person, company that might they feel where you do not have a working vehicle for what could be months at a time. And obviously, there's you could get the rental car and things like that. But in terms of getting your car back in a timely manner, and or you obviously want to make sure that those that are the ones repairing your car, obviously want to make sure that they're trained for the reasons that we talked about earlier. Is there's a loss of we could have significant impact on future job reports because of the amount of opportunities that exist with that we're trying to help fulfill at that entry level. But yeah, we would feel the pain quickly. And you know what? Honestly, it sometimes takes that where if you can't get your car back, you can't get your toilet fixed, it's going to take that to kind of make the light go off with some people that might be what we call influencing the influencers that have the deciding factor on whether to keep these programs around and or open new programs, which does happen. And we obviously embrace and want to put a spotlight on those schools that are actually investing in their technical programs and opening them because they know and see, or their administration might have a technical background where they know they need to keep these programs open because of the need that their local market has. And a lot of times employers will come into their local school and say, you guys could be graduating 10 times the amount of students that you currently are, and it still would not fulfill the employment need that this industry has within your local market. And sometimes that speaks to those influencers or decision makers when it comes to supporting these programs. But yeah, we would be in a world of hurt. And again, we either need to start addressing this now, or it's going to, that bad reality is about to kind of be faced with us here shortly.
Wow. Yeah, no, that does help paint the picture. And, one of the things that I was thinking too, as you were saying that is, your car takes longer to get fixed, right? And there's people out there like, don't worry about it. I'm going to have a rental car. I can still get from point A to point B. Well, think about this too. You have a rental car, presumably because you have insurance. The longer you have that rental car, the more the insurance is going to pay. What do you think that's going to do to the rates of the insurance, who is that going to affect? Right. So, I mean, when you tie this back and you connect all the dots, I mean, this could be, I mean, inflation is a drop in the bucket compared to this. I mean,
Exactly.
when you look at it like that, right? And it could be in a relatively short amount of time if, to your point, we don't do something about it.
Exactly.
So, okay. So the next question I have, I mean, you guys have a lot of support. You've got you do this all over. Is it all over the country or all over the world? Or is it
all 50 states in the U.S.?
States.
We have been approached by other, Canada has asked, can you guys come up that way to help out those schools and other areas? But we are specifically focused on the 50, the U.S. states.
Okay, so how do you frame it? Right, you said you focus on attraction, support, and employment. From an attraction standpoint, getting people curious, getting people interested. It's one thing to lay it on the table, Brandon, and present it and say, this is what you can do. But it's another to say, this is what you can do and this is why you want to, right?
Yep.
So how is that framed? How is that talked about to the kids, either if it's at a high school level or junior high level? How do you handle that?
So on the attraction piece, there's several different kind of initiatives that we have, or kind of areas of focus. And one, it's making the programs look like professional learning environments, as opposed to the dark, dingy body shop that some people either believe it is, and or sometimes it does look like that to no fault of the instructor. Like I said, they're working with very limited program budgets. So them thinking about me putting a fresh coat of paint on the walls, brand new epoxy floors, they're just trying to afford the essentials if they can afford that. So when we come in, together with our partners at Cintas. So what we've done since about the 2009 time period, if you can imagine the traditional short sleeve blue technician shirts that you'll see mechanics and or others wear, we allow companies to help sponsor uniforms for their local collision students at a high school, community college, technical college. So the students look like live working professionals. And we've had to probably distributed over, easily 150, 200,000 uniforms. And what's interesting, Josh, the the feedback that we've gotten from instructors that have said of the 500 plus million that you guys have given out, the uniforms of all things have made the biggest impact on their programs. Because if the students look like live working professionals, they're treated with a new level of respect. It changes the mindset of the student. The same reason if you and I got into a brand new suit, you feel a little bit different when you're looking professional. Um, there's the perception that we need to help change, understanding people are going to be getting dirty when they're working on cars, but we want to make it look like an inviting program to learn in. So, like I said before, working together with some of our partners at, say, like Rust-Oleum, giving these programs brand new epoxied floors, making sure that they have a professional working environment helps, because sometimes the schools are bringing in, say, junior high or younger students, and they're given a tour of the program. You don't want them to be afraid of the collision repair shop program because of the way it looks. So that's where we can come in and work with our industry partners, and local businesses can invest in their local schools to make sure those programs are inviting. The other piece of attraction, and we've got several different initiatives, is the school counselors. We've heard from time and time again, and I'm sure you've heard from other guests, that the school counselors play gatekeepers, like we talked about earlier, in terms of accepting or not accepting the technical trades as a viable career path for students. So as opposed to just standing on the sidelines and complaining about school counselors, what we've done recently is start to engage with them. And there is the American School Counselor Association, which is their national body that brings together kindergarten through high school school counselors from around the country, or that's their association. So what we've started to do, and we actually started this past July when they met for their national conference down in Austin, Texas. We were there with over 4,000 school counselors to represent the industry and start talk to them about, here's what this industry is about. It's not that dark, dingy body shop, industry that you think of. Here's the earning potential. Here is the different career paths that are available. And what we're happy to hear is that a lot of school counselors are understanding, and they're starting to get the fact that we need to start embracing the technical education field more. What they're looking for are resources to help teach their students. So don't expect me, school counselor here in Chicago, to remember everything about the collision industry, whether it's a pamphlet, a website, an app, things like that. Give us those resources to direct people to, so that they get the accurate information. And another piece is obviously getting out in front of the parents, the general public, who may or may not know about this industry and what those career paths are. So we actually have a fundraiser that's in the middle of. We have a fundraiser that's taking place in partnership with another couple of companies, where we have a 69 Camaro being rebuilt that will actually, the raffle and the funds raised from that will actually fund a kind of a national public service campaign / outreach to get in front of the parents, because we can do that being a national 501c3 charity. And that program is called Operative Talent. The 69 Camaro that's being built by KTL Restorations is called Talent. But that raffle and kind of fundraiser is taking place now until SEMA 2023. So next November is where that car will be raffled off. But we've kind of invited, whether it's a car enthusiast, if you want to be in possession of a brand new 69 Camaro that has over 40 different build partners involved with, engines and everything that goes involved with it. The more money we can raise with initiatives like that, the bigger an appeal we can do to the general public to re-educate those people about what this industry is about, what the different opportunities are. If you have a student or child that's kind of lost and maybe in your basement, we have a place. There's opportunities, whether it's to go to a local school to get that training, or we can help connect them with industry employers around the country who are in desperate need.
Unbelievable. Like I knew that you got, that you were involved a lot, but this is just a whole nother level. Like this is fantastic. And I think is a blueprint that we can use across these industries to really, like they say, right? All ships rise with the tide.
Yep.
This is a blueprint that we can use to raise that tide. Like, holy hell. And I know that I want to have you back on too, before to talk a little bit more specifically about the fundraiser, and the 69 Camaro. That's pretty wild. Wow, very cool. Okay. Holy cow. Okay, listen, I could talk to you forever. We've already been talking for about 45 minutes. I want to move to close here real quick, and I've got a couple more questions for you. But before I do, I want to ask you if there's anything that you want to interject that we haven't talked about yet.
again, like we talked about, we've been very well supported by our industry partners. What we can do a better job of, and then through opportunities like this. So I thank you, Josh, again for having me on to help introduce what we do in our efforts. But I think where you'll see some additional efforts around is, again, any car enthusiasts, anyone that believes in the technical trades, that believes that shop classes can be be brought back and well supported. We invite you to consider joining us and being a partner and supporter of ours. I know there's many people that might be thinking about a year-end a charitable tax deductible gift. Know that if you are joining our efforts, the money's going to obviously a great cause. It's going to where it should and be directed when helping out the future of the industry. So we can do what we can only through our industry partners, and we're looking to get more engaged with the general public in showcasing what we do. And there were some other fun things that we've done in terms of where Jay Leno has actually donated a private tour of his garage to us. So we're trying to get creative and think outside the box of how can we get in front of the public in our own unique way where we're not spending millions of dollars on advertising and things like that. But there's opportunities where we've collaborated with auto shows and things like that, where they're bringing people together that have an interest about, the field. But, showcasing, like you said, many people aren't aware of what we are and what we do. So, if we can do that, we can only raise more funds to help out these schools to make sure that the that pipeline that's needed for the industry is well supported to get the best education possible, and they're showing all the different career paths that are available to them.
Absolutely. And I think it's fair to note too, Brandon, that if that many people don't know about you and your industry and what your industry does with as much as you're doing for it, that should speak volumes about the rest of the skilled trades as well, and the lack of knowledge and attention given to those industries. So I think it's a great way to pave the way, for more people in these trades. So I've got another question for you. Last question. Yep. Last two questions. So what does success look like to the organization, right? What does it look like to win at what you're doing and to look back and say, we did it?
A very good question. That could be an hour-long conversation just by itself. But I think I think that picture kind of be seen in terms of what we talked about, but to have, while we're focused specifically on the collision industry. So for the collision industry to be seen as a successful path and opportunity for students to where the programs that are out there are fully funded and supported, and there's full classrooms, because a lot of these programs are kind of judged and evaluated on the number of people they have in the seats, but making sure it's the right people that are actually interested in this industry and not just seat fillers because they don't know what they're going to do and they're just being put there because it's a placeholder for them. You have focused, students in those programs who are then well trained and ready for entry-level employment, to make sure that it's not them just sweeping floors or doing, kind of basic work, that they're properly trained for that entry-level work. And there's that pipeline that is fed into the industry, and it meets the employer's needs that are out there, not just today, but, long term, that there's a pipeline established to make sure that we fill all those needs in the many different segments of the industry. It's not just about the repair facilities and dealerships. There's many different opportunities in the industry, in different companies, that there's a need for, and that can be done through our industry support and kind of connectivity that we have both on the school side and on the employment side, so that when someone gets into an accident, there's people there to be able to repair their cars correctly and put them back into the consumer's hands so that they feel entrusted of what they're driving and once they get back on the road.
Awesome. What a great answer. Great answer to that. So my last question, officially.
Yep.
So, I talk a lot about, on this show, I talk to a lot of people in the skilled trades. I talk to a lot of advocates of the skilled trades, people parallel to the skilled trades, and people like you who are extreme supporters of the skilled trades. And so, being in and around the industry, I like to talk about success and what that means, obviously, to your organization, but to you personally as well, being involved with these industries. So Brandon, you personally, how do you define success, and how is what you're doing now helping you to achieve that?
For me personally, in the position that I am within CREF, first and foremost, I want to make sure that my team is well supported, and making sure that they can do what they can to help support these schools. So I think that's first and foremost. But then also, we have an obligation to the industry that is supporting us, that they can see movement when it comes to kind of moving the needle to, they can see that success is happening, that whether it's programs that are being invested in, students that are being invested in, that we can showcase to them that with data that we're making a difference together. So, and I would fully understand that, we owe that to our partners, that the work that they, or the donations that they're providing to us are helping to address this issue that we're facing. So making sure that, that these students are well supported, these programs are well supported, and they can see that that average age is actually coming down as opposed to increasing every year, showcases that, we're having that impact on making sure that the students are entering into the industry, they're finding a place within it, and again, making sure that they have they're being successful within these industry employers, companies. I think is key that I'm hoping to be able to do while being in this position.
All right, great. Well, hey, Brandon, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me today, and I know that my audience is going to appreciate it. I'm very excited for this episode to come out. So, just 1,000 thanks. Where can people find you?
So people can go online to collisioneducationfoundation.org. Learn more about the company or the organization, the different things that we're doing when it comes to scholarships and school grants. And if someone's able to make a year-end tax deductible donation, we greatly appreciate the support. If you're looking to get involved with your local schools, as that's what we're also known for in terms of connecting people with those local, whether it's a high school, a technical college, community college, you'll find our contact information. So let's start that dialogue on how, whether you're in the industry or maybe just you believe in this effort, that we can help get you to help support the local schools and students, and showcase that there's a need out there, and that would be great. So again, collisioneducationfoundation.org. And we look forward to working with any of those that might be interested in kind of joining our efforts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon, both for coming on the show and for what you do for this industry.
Thank you so much, Josh, and I hope you have a great holiday.
All right, you too, my friend. Until next time.